I called this live session the deconstruction of America, and if you've been following me for a while, I've this is not the first time I've used that phrase, the deconstruction of America, because I think yeah, that's their goal here. Um, they want to tear it down, break it apart, seize the parts they want, burn down the parts they don't, leave everybody else hanging, and leave everybody else with the bill. Um, let's start off with the latest in the Epstein dump. Um, again, and many people are talking about this. This and it, that's good. Is reminding people what they're actually looking at. Okay, and the major question right now are where are the important docs, not this bullshit you just released. Okay, because the tip line is salacious. It's got a lot of names in there, but you're never going to convict anybody off of a tip line log or tip line spreadsheet. Okay, that's that's not the way you go about a criminal investigation in general, especially not one like this. So, like Allison over murder, Mueller, she wrote, brought up is like, yeah, we don't have the 302s, we don't have the field reports from the FBI agents themselves. You want to make this real? Release the damn 302s. Because a 302 is going to be a badged special agent speaking to a reporting party, a witness, a victim, or a possible suspect. Okay. And I'll repeat this again for the 10,000th time. There's no person of interest in law enforcement. I don't know what the fuck you are talking about. We have a person of interest. They don't exist. You have a reporting party, a victim, a witness, or a suspect. That's it. Okay. And anybody who would fall into one of those four categories would be in the field reports. And the field reports would be very detailed. Okay, that's the core police reports for the FBI. Like I forgot what we called our nightlies. I know 015 funds. That was our money we had to account for when we're working undercover. Uh, it was something I don't even remember what it was. It was something like a 1055 or something was our daily logs. And it was impressive if you could get the duty agent and your team chief on your team to read your dailies. Never mind anybody who'd up the chain of command. So the big thing again, I just want to make sure that everybody realizes what they're looking at. And a lot of these is just emails between people and a bunch of tip sheets and a bunch of other random crap. It's not the 302 from the FBI agents. It's not the special agent in charge at the FBI at the regional office or the city office that said, "Hey, we need to open up a case and this is why." Okay. I want to see the SAC's determination on why they should pursue moving forward in a criminal investigation on whatever they were looking into, whoever they were looking to. Um, the deciding sheets from the U.S. attorneys, they have to write a memo to their bosses on why they are or are not charging somebody and why they're going forward, A, B, C, right? Those would be interesting too. A lot more interesting than the tip sheets. But the emails do tell us something. Um, something quite disturbing, by the way. The email tells us several things that somewhere between disturbing and nefarious. One is the upper echelon of the wealthy class in America do not operate like the rest of society. Um, I I I am really like perplexed how so many people with so many big reputations from so many different areas, in the upper echelon of the economy, they had no problem communicating with Jeffrey Epstein after he pled guilty to child rape. That's the most disturbing thing to me is they didn't see a problem being associated with him because everybody knows if you're talking to somebody in email and the other end of the email ends up getting arrested, guess what's probably going to end up on the news? The emails. They always do. It's the emails or the text messages or the signal chat groups. If you wrote it down, it's going to end up coming out public later on. They didn't seem to be worried about that at all. You know, the second this guy gets, out of court pleading guilty and onto his work release at his, custom county jail stay, once you get over his tiny little punishment at county jail, everybody in those emails acted like nothing had happened. No serious crimes were committed. And they sought advice and gave advice to Jeffrey Epstein. Still associated, still wanted to know about the parties, still wanted to know about events, still wanted to know about people. And forget everything else just for a second. These guys, these billionaires, these super wealthy, these celebrities, these top lawyers, this circle of the 1%, didn't seem to be a problem, a reputational problem for hanging out with a pedophile, befriending a child molester. That didn't bother them one bit. And I read through just email after email. I spent more than an hour last night just reading through a trove that was dropped and just looking at the names. And the names themselves, it doesn't matter. Again, without the 302s to figure out who they were actually investigating, this is all soap opera. Okay, this is not a criminal investigation. This is not criminal evidence. Unless you can put it together and make a case out of it and provide supporting evidence and supporting testimony, you don't have much. But what I saw out of this was not only that they're completely fine with hanging out and communicating and partying with a known pedophile, a guy who went to jail for pedophilia. That's not a deal breaker for these guys. Now, the other thing by reading a nauseating amount of these emails is the thing I've been describing for years now. I even described it, 12 plus years ago when I was on Facebook with my Groovy Libertarian for President page. Okay. We are told that we live in a left or right orthodoxy. We have Democrats and Republicans, we have liberals and conservatives, and we need to fight it out. And always, while we fight it out, what happens? The same thing over and over. Military spending goes up, the burden on the middle class becomes larger, greater of a tax-free lifestyle is assigned to the 1% who's at the center of government spending, corporate enrichment, and political power plays. Okay. They told us there was a left-right orthodoxy. Look through these fucking emails, people. You have people that are allegedly from completely different political stripes, different political walks of life. They're all chummy. There's no liberal or conservative. There's no Republican and Democrat in those circles. There's access. There's money. There's opportunity only for those who are moneyed. Okay, so they've been spending. Oh shit! I mean, it started with Lee Atwater in the 1978 midterms, the midterms that led up to us fucking up and electing Reagan as president. They had to tell you that there was two widely different parties with wildly different agendas. You read through these emails and you look at the personas that are in these emails and how they mouth out. Some of those people mouth out publicly about their political positioning. Okay, this is a mixed stew of political beliefs. That doesn't stop them from hanging out. Doesn't seem to stop them from pursuing a common interest. They're awfully chummy once they're wealthy enough. That's what I'm saying. When you're that wealthy, there are no enemies on the other side of the political aisle. It's just you're chumming up to somebody because they're in the exclusive group. The exclusive group where the economy means nothing to them. They don't give a flying fuck what a gallon of gas costs or 18 eggs or a loaf of bread. They have so much wealth, they're completely disconnected from the economy. This is why when you get, stupid bitches like Brooke there at Ag, oh, you can live off $3 a day. Ugh. Rich people don't know what it's like to struggle on $3 a day, nor do they care. The people they answer to, the people in these emails, they could care less. They have absolutely no loyalty to anything but themselves and their wealth and the access their wealth provides them. And if you're not that wealthy, you're the enemy. How many people saw that? How many people realize this? Why aren't they arguing about things? This is all about sucking up to each other, scheduling parties, you know, people who usually mix like oil and water, they're at the same gig, they're at the same event, they're involved in the same nasty deeds with the same nasty people. They're doing the same degenerate things, hanging out with the same degenerate crowd. Look what they have working people doing on the streets, literally at each other's throats, because there has to be a divide. There's no divide at that level. There's just one thing: wealth and the privileges it provides. Are you getting the con yet? Now the con gets really, really deep because they didn't release shit that really mattered. Okay. Yeah, the emails show us who these guys are. Sure. Sure. What their morals and ethics are, non-existent. I get it. But what did it show us as criminal investigation, criminal conviction, conclusive material? Almost nothing. And that was on purpose. Because this Mox Nix dump of bullshit, which by the way contained naked photos of the victims. What the fuck? What is with what we've been running around the country yelling about groomers and child porn and C-spam and da da da. Oh my God, it's the epic crime wave that's destroying America. But wealthy people can rape kids, no problem. And then the DOJ, who helps protect those wealthy people, can literally release CSAM while Elon Musk's bot creates CSAM and publishes it by the millions across the internet, across the entire planet. That's not a problem. That's perfectly okay. But now that they've had a dump, and all it was a dump of shit you've seen before, shit that you will have to go through and spend days making it readable. then finding out it's the same shit you saw before. It maybe included a few different emails with maybe one or two real names, but 90% of the people in the emails, you knew they're already in the emails. There's not a stitch of actual um, evidence inventory, field reports, decision-making reports from either the FBI special agent in charges or the U.S. attorneys. There's nothing in there. But they did this mass dump so they could say they did a mass dump. Oh, look, we did it. We complied with the law that Massey and Kona wrote. And, it was all a fraud. It was a setup. Because first thing out of the gate Monday morning, Dear Leader porn star Humper announces he has been exonerated by the Epstein file released today or Friday. He has been totally exonerated. Close shop, close the thing, close the case. Todd Blanche announces the case investigation is over. Everybody's been exonerated. Okay. I'm supposed to believe that. Hmm. So what you're telling me is Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison for sex trafficking little girls to nobody. Because if nobody didn't do anything, then what is Maxwell in prison for? Because going all the way back to the Palm Beach local police investigation, they knew there were multiple suspects, which all got a free pass when Epstein entered into the prosecution settlement agreement. The names were just, oh, we won't look at this guy. We won't look at this woman. One of Ghislaine Maxwell's friend, who's one of the lead recruiters. And the disgusting part about this is he goes, I'm exonerated from a system that was a pedophilia RICO run like an Amway pyramid scheme. They had girls getting paid, the victims, the minor females, getting paid to go find other minor females that could be raped. But he's been exonerated from a dump that doesn't tell us anything. It was a garbage dump intended to be a garbage dump. Just like the first couple of releases. The one they did at the White House with all the manila folders and all the papers inside were all redacted, or the first couple of pages were already released. Everybody knows them. Chris Korbach's dancing around with his manila folder like it meant something. Didn't mean anything. Okay? That was a distraction. The 3 million files they just dumped was a distraction. Because it doesn't tell you anything conclusive, and it just keeps throwing random names out there without any connection, any nexus to the crimes. I mean, nexuses that would get you criminally convicted, not just insinuations or reasonable suspicions. I'm talking about the beyond the reasonable doubt stuff that gets people thrown in jail. That wasn't released. But Trump's exonerated himself. Dear Leader has exonerated Dear Leader based on the decision of Dear Leader. Yeah, this is the full North Korea, folks. Kim Jong-un couldn't do it better. So now that he's exonerated, he's going to close the Kennedy Center for 2 years because he wants to turn it into another Stalingrad whorehouse like he's done the White House. White House just disgusts me right now. It literally looks like a fucking cheap whorehouse. Well, considering who's living in it, that's probably apropos, right? You know, everything's a fantasy with this crew. Millennia only booked $7 million worldwide on a $75 million minimum budget. And I don't think that's the budget. I think it's much higher. but it was one of the best documentary releases in years. What a successful documentary release. Didn't do as well as two other releases this weekend, but it's very good for a documentary, according to Forbes and about 19 other headlines I've seen today. So he's going to close the Kennedy Center because he's been exonerated, and he's also going to seize voting as a national function directed by himself. So let's review. Dear Leader Porn Star Humper is not guilty across the board because we did not produce any evidence to show whether or not the people rumored to be involved had committed any crimes. So he's completely absolved himself based on the evidence he said he reviewed about himself. So he's going to then seize. He went off on this on the the fucking twat who just left the FBI. Okay, because he couldn't handle it. He's back doing his podcast. Trump calls into his podcast and says, well, I'm going to seize voting, and the Congress has got to back me up on this because, none of these votes are being counted right. Oh, so dear leader is not guilty because dear leader reviewed the evidence, adjudicated himself, and determined he wasn't guilty. Dear leader won or didn't win the election because dear leader reviewed the votes, decided for himself whether or not he ran the election. Am I getting all this right? Am I getting the full Gaddafi right here? The full Saddam Hussein? Because this is exactly the shit they did. He's literally North Korea political philosophy, a pedophilia ring, and the next election based on his own exoneration of himself. Why people aren't running up to Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and literally telling them to go fuck themselves. You're losers. You're incapable of leading a thirsty horse to water. I have no idea. Did you guys see the latest ethnic attack he launched? He launched it through Dr. Oz this time. He sent Dr. Oz to LA because Vance has already gone to Ohio. Holman's gone to Minneapolis. Remember, it was the Haitians in Ohio eating the dogs and stealing the welfare. Then it's the Somalis who did commit some crime, but they're all U.S. citizens, by the way. Most of them were U.S. citizens that got caught. It's not $14 billion like he lied about. He always lies about numbers. It's more like $375 million. It's not 14 billion. So then he sends Dr. Oz, a Turk, to Los Angeles, where Dr. Oz declares that all crime in Los Angeles is committed by the Armenians. All the government fraud is committed by the Armenians. Wonder how Anna Kasparian feels about that. She's Armenian. She was one of the ones who jumped ship, like Bill Maher, Mika and Joe, and Joe Rogan, and Bill Maher, and many others who decided to jump on the pedophilia for kingship bandwagon. I wonder how she feels that her people in Los Angeles doesn't tell they're responsible for all the government fraud and all the crime. He knows this after he exonerated himself from the pedophilia ring. And I'm really glad that everybody's saying that now. It don't matter what podcast I watch, okay, unless it's, some red hat dick fucking podcaster like Tim Pool or Benny Johnson. Every other podcaster, left, center, libertarian, small c conservative, never Trump, they're all saying the same thing. The country is now being led by a pedophile ring. Yes, that's true. I really do think that's true. It's a sad state of fucking affairs, I can tell you that much. So the pedophilia ring invades Minneapolis, Minnesota, after going after several other cities based on hokum. Okay. You need a military assault because state officials and the FBI have already arrested a theft ring, a fraud ring. A lot of those people have already been tried and convicted. They're already serving their sentences. But we need a military invasion of Minnesota because something, 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 bad, bad brown people, something, something. Ah, something. I determined it in my own head with the evidence I put there myself and claimed everybody else was doing something wrong. So out comes, I got this tab open on the other side here. Out comes this military assessment report that says they're seeing insurgencies in America. The military can no longer tell the difference between a peaceful protest and an insurgency. Um, and the asshole, the warrant officer, the complete asshole who wrote this report, um, probably should go to Longstool or Walter Reed and check into the psychiatric ward. Okay. Because he literally thinks there's an insurgency in progress, yet there's been no IEDs. There's been no bum rushing hospitals to shoot doctors and nurses like happened in Iraq. There are no drug warlords taking over towns, as they claim. Nothing that happened in Iraq or Afghanistan or Syria or any place else is going on in America right now, except if you're writing a military assessment report because um, your brain got fried and you have PTSD and there's probably some other fucked up things and happening in the gray matter. Now you see, now everything's an insurgency. Everything is a war. Okay, I got an answer for that. You're fucking lying, number one. Number two, because you're fucking lying, and since you know, and I'm gonna do this across the board. The local police were just as bad as ICE just a couple of years ago. Remember the tank year when we gave them the tank and every fucking call was a tank and all of a sudden they're shooting people at a rate that is multiples of any fucking year in the existence of America? Yeah, it was the local police with Army gear and DHS gear that were the first ICE force in America. Okay. And that was just a few years ago. We finally got their dumbasses calmed down and told them we do not want policing by warfare. But now here comes ICE. We're going to do what the local police did 100 times worse. And then we're going to have the military write assessments saying China is no longer a threat. That's the National Defense Strategy Report, the annual report. China is not a threat. Russia's not a threat. Nobody's a threat. The warlords in Afghanistan are not a threat. Syria, Somalia, Al Shabaab, nobody's a threat except Americans in America. And maybe a few people trafficking drugs in the Caribbean. Okay. Then on top of that, you write another assessment that says, oh, yeah, this isn't a legal protest. This isn't constitutional First Amendment rights. This is an insurgency and a threat to the government. Why? Because dear leader sees threats to his nationalist regime. His nationalist regime with one purpose, to keep him out of jail for a list of things, including being part of a pedophilia ring. Okay. I got the answer to this. Let's vote for candidates, hopefully independents, that are willing to cut the military budget by 50% and the law enforcement budget by 50%. Why 50%? Because you can't eliminate all police services. I've talked about this before. But you got to send the message that if all you can see is boogeymen, but you still can't get a criminal conviction for a felony, then you're worthless assholes. You're not cops. And if the military can only get, I'm still pissed at the 82nd Airborne NCOs. Cheering on dear leader. Let's invade Boston, and they start fucking barking like seals. Fuck all y'all. Let's see how your unit works when we cut 50% of the military budget. We stopped sponsoring families. We cut education funds for the military brats. Okay? Because if all you can do is see America as the enemy and Americans as your only threat, then I got a cure for that. I got a cure for that fucking delusion. called money, motherfucker. It's called your budget. Let's go through 1 year of knocking them down to their knees and telling them you're going to have to find something else to do because you have obviously too much money, too much time, and too many resources on your hand. If you suddenly think the world is a peaceful place, it's all butterflies and rainbows around the world, and your only problem is Main Street USA. While you attempt to literally violate the sovereignty of a half a dozen countries. I'm sorry. I do not accept that Delta Force is now the robbery team in a Netflix crime action drama where they are the roadmen ripping off another country so dear leader porn star Humper can start a slush fund in Qatar and hand it to his campaign donor. Okay? If Delta Force has that level of time on their hands, then I say I'm completely okay with cutting the military budget by 50%. And that 50% would mean zeroing out ICE, nearly zeroing out DHS. Unless I could tolerate breaking up DHS, but keeping a small police intelligence function there, but that's about it. ICE has to go. Border Patrol needs to go back on the border. What fucking border goes through Minnesota? There's a border at the north. Tell me the one that goes through the main boulevard of Minneapolis. Tell me which border that is and why the Border Patrol is there by the thousands. I got a cure for that bullshit of attacking American cities. Cut their fucking budget. Now, if you think these twats like Pelosi and Schumer and Jeffries are going to fucking cut anything, they're going to give them more money. Why? Because this is all a show. The emails prove that to you. Everybody in these emails are donors to somebody in the political sphere. When they talk amongst themselves, it is just them versus the rest of America and the rest of the world. Voting in a Democrat does, especially an incumbent Democrat, does what? And regardless of party, if they ain't willing to slash budgets, don't vote for them. Just don't. ICE is now funded like the fucking Israeli army. That's how big of a budget they've got. To do what? Murder U.S. citizens in the street, kidnap U.S. citizens, and then dump them out in the cold half-dressed, abuse elderly. Okay, last time I checked, like every state in the fucking union, we've got felony charges if you cause injury to an elderly person. That doesn't seem to apply to ICE and the local police and the local prosecutors, the state police, the state prosecutors, the attorney generals will do nothing. The Philadelphia DA's talking big shit. Oh, I'll hunt you down like Nazis. Okay, charge one of them anywhere for anything they fucking done. Because when you arrest a U.S. citizen on immigration charges, that is inherently a false arrest. Ergo, when you transport them in the false arrest, that's probably kidnapping. When you throw them in a cell as a U.S. citizen on an immigration charge, that's probably a false arrest married up with a false imprisonment. Who's doing what about any of these things? Nobody's doing shit. And yeah, the next budget cycle, when they admit what a bunch of fuck ups they are, and they couldn't find a felon if they fucking tried. The report that just came out, the more arrests they've made, the less of the target they claimed were taken into custody. The more arrests they made, the less people with criminal convictions or violent criminal past have been arrested. Associated Press reporting. Sorry, tens of millions of Americans don't get health care. We're shutting down rural hospitals all over the country, especially in the Midwest. We've closed down pediatric cancer research so we can arrest people who 61% of the time have never had a criminal conviction in their lives. And some of those peoples were legal residents on legal green cards following the legal process with the immigration judge, or they were U.S. citizens. I got a cure for that. 50% less military budget, 50% less police budget. Oh, but then we'll have to lay off cops. Okay. Get mad at the NRA. They're the ones that told you buying a gun solves crime. It doesn't. I wrote essays about this. Having a good police department with a good closure rate and good cops that work professionally and ethically, that's what lowers fucking crime. But you didn't want to hear that for 40 fucking years. You wanted your little play toy. Oh, pew, 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 pew. Oh, I'm a war hero. There's no crime because I've got a pew, pew. Fuck off. But that whole bad attitude, those decades of being lied to. Oh, but what about the drug war? Fuck your drug war. The drug war has to be one of the biggest failures of all time of any fucking policy the government has ever dreamed up. Remember, the drug war started as the alcohol prohibition, morphed into the marijuana prohibition, morphed into Nixon into a war on every drug, including drugs that had pharmaceutical and therapeutic known uses. Like MDMA was a therapeutic drug that worked. Can't have that. You can't have something that works. We're gonna because we can't have you taking MDMA, ecstasy. We can't have you taking that because we have opioid pills to sell you. My campaign donors got millions of bottles of opioids to sell Americans. You can't take MDMA to feel better. Here's some oxy. Getting the con yet? You got DEA agents storming in mass, ballyclava, not identifying themselves, skulking around a reporter's home at fucking midnight. That's the best thing you've got to do with DEA agents? I got a cure for that. 50% of your budget. Bye-bye. Bye-bye and fuck off. And you really want to do it right, you vote in a bunch of independents, they write the bill, and they say, not only do we take 50% off your budgets, but then we start closing resources in the states that encourage Trump to do his shit. Because a 50% cut, you're talking some bases and forts being closed. Let's close them in Texas and Florida and Louisiana. Let's send a little message there. Let's start furloughing like Reagan fired all the air traffic controller. Let's fire every employee in the state of Texas that works for the military branches. You're no longer cost effective. You're being replaced by AI. Whatever fucking excuse. I don't care. Just get rid of them. Oh, but we need this. Why? So you can invade America to protect a pedophile ring? No, not acceptable. Then after we read these emails, and it's completely apparent to us that you guys are in your little fucking club on top of the rest of us, and nothing you can do, nothing you do could be considered wrong. It's always somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's cost. And why do I want to keep paying into military and a bloated military and police budgets? With the big beautiful bill, they don't pay any taxes anymore. They get a free ride. They hand us the bill. They want us to pay $600 billion more to the Pentagon so the Pentagon can invade my town because Putin and Z are no longer threats. Just Americans are the threats. And with his call today about seizing voting, the whole process of voting, he wants it underneath his thumb. Okay, write out a podcast today and said it. These elections, now there's good signs that the elections will go this way because look what just happened in Texas. Jesus, it was like a 31-point turnaround. Guy wins a special Democrat in a pure red district. Doesn't get any redder than this district. Was it District 9? I think it was. Um, wasn't even close. Tons and tons of conservative independents and conservative Republicans had to vote for him to get a spread like that. Because there's only two possibilities. I haven't read the polling yet, but there's only two possibilities. Um, Democrats came out in that county that never voted before in a number that's almost impossible, or a whole bunch of people crossed over. And I think it's the latter that crossed over. But we need blowout races, especially for the House. There can't be any doubt after election night. These can't be 1 or 2 point races. They've got to be 15, 20, 25, 30% splits in the race. They got to be overwhelming victories for whoever the non-MAGA shithead is that's running in that election. Oh, I didn't look into the polling yet, but I did. I was listening to a couple people talk about the focus groups. They focus grouped law enforcement, current and recently retired law enforcement. ICE has lost the support of law enforcement, according to this focus group. One guy who had to medically retire last year said in the focus group, I'm really glad I'm not on the job anymore because I would be embarrassed to be a cop because they're making it too difficult to be a good cop. They're getting the Rodney King reaction we had back in my day. Because we weren't pissed at Rodney King. We, the blue wearing guys and gals, we were pissed at LAPD. Cops today are feeling the same thing about ICE. Like none of this has anything to do with proper law enforcement. This is just goon squads to shit. And almost nobody in the focus group liked it. A law enforcement focus group. So that's about the only good news today is the cops, at least the local cops, are like, no, you can't be doing this. And this comes after the leaks you've had to the independent journalists here on Substack, the supervisors that have been in ICE for decades, when they were just, badge windbreaker clipboard, they didn't look like, a Michael Bay movie in Afghanistan. They're saying they're going to get people killed, including themselves. And then they're going to try to claim to be victims when they're not. They're going to instigate stuff. That's coming from within inside DHS. And I told you guys before, all my old brothers and sisters from back in the day, I haven't found a one that's down with this shit. Not a one. We didn't like the police tanks, especially when you could armor up a car or an SUV. just like we did in West Germany in the 80s. That's how we moved VIPs, and especially armored cars. Look completely like civilian vehicles. You never knew the difference. Group isn't cool says I retired from fire because they were all for the racism. They were cool with Derek Chauvin, 1-6, scream DEI, CRT every time a black professional was on TV. Yeah, it's a broken culture thing. Yeah. Um, I'm glad I didn't have to hear that from any firefighter in back in my day, because they would have definitely got an earful from me. Um, in my units in the military and the department I worked in the civilian life, racism was not tolerated. Period. End of story. Like if the city manager caught wind of some racist incident and you're on the bad side of it, you're definitely getting fired. Definitely getting fired. And I look back at our city manager and realize, wow, a good city manager can really keep a city in line. Because we had some strict senior management in our department, the lieutenants and the captains. Uh, but the one you had to look out for in our city was the city manager. He would put his foot down. Like he basically this is like I think this was like 8 or 10 years after I retired. One of the guys called me up from the old days. He goes, "Man, we have all new rules now to deal with the homeless." I go, "What happened?" He goes, some story ended up on the news. Um, wasn't them, but it was another department on the other side of the bay. They kind of got rough with a homeless guy and did a stupid thing. So the city manager we work for came down, was like, "You will never do this. I will be reviewing reports personally that deal with either the fire department or the police department dealing with our homeless population in our city. If I see something wrong, I'll be ordering the chief to open up investigations." You know, he didn't like several things that were in the news at that time, including the drive and drop bullshit. Then you pick up a homeless person, drive them 10 cities away, throw them out on the sidewalk, bye, drive away. Um, the hospital dumps or the hospitals dumping them back on the street. He didn't like a whole bunch of those things, from what I understand. But yeah, that I'm sorry to hear that. I really am. Personally, I think isms are stupid because remember, tribalism is the top of the pyramid. And then you get secularism and racism and a bunch of other isms that fall in underneath that. Um, I just consider the ism pyramid to be groupthink. That's so fucking stupid. And I also know my dad's family's Irish. My great grandfather came over from Ireland, went to Boston. I had the sign in my home theater about no Irish need apply. Um, that's something he really faced. When he came into the country, Irish that came in a generation before my relatives did. Um, it was even worse for them. Go back to the post Civil War era, late 1800s. There were several incidents where the Irish were harmed. Infamous incident in Pennsylvania: a group of Irish railroad workers walked into the wrong town one night, and they were accused of not spreading cholera, but being the cause of cholera. So they were hacked to death with shovels. So yeah, racism has got to be some of the and again, it's the whole reptilian part of our brain. Um, it's that whole visual cortex, visual relativity of what's safe and what's an enemy and all that. If it looks like you, it's probably safe. That's the way animals think. We're supposed to be smarter animals, but yeah, a lot of people still get caught in that fear flight mechanism that everything could be a risk. Everybody could be a risk. When you're living in the jungle, yeah, that's how you got to survive. I get that. Um, especially when I really thought racism was going a different direction. until about 12 years ago. And then I realized it's not much better than it's ever been. I think our kids, like my kids' generation, the late 20s, early 30s, millennials, they're a lot less racist than like my parents' generation were. Because like a lot of people in my parents' generation were outwardly racist. Um, and it's something I never liked because I understand my own family's history. I understand how bullying occurs for all sorts of reasons. You know, people will find a reason to put themselves on a platform for some idiotic excuse, and it doesn't make any sense to me. And especially the older I get, the dumber I think it is. Like being in America, and I know like why is it less of a problem in Canada? Well, no chattel slavery. That was our that's where we buried ourselves. Now we have generation after generation after generation of people who still hold on to things that should have been forgotten a century ago. It's truly, truly just ill thinking. Right? Okay. The people who started the electric guitar era, I'm a huge fan. I own a bunch of electric guitars. I was playing last night. I was doing some solo work. Um, that comes down to a handful of giants. Um, Bristol says monuments to Civil War losers. Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize is most of those Civil War monuments didn't show up until LBJ started trying to pass the civil rights laws. They have nothing to do with the Confederacy of the Confederacy's time. Nothing to do with that whatsoever. But like American music, I mean, that's Sister Rosetta Thorpe. That's Buddy Guy. That's the Three Kings, BB, Albert, and Freddie King. Um, America's only true music form that we could really say was started here um, is jazz. And jazz is a big amalgam of a lot of things, but um, jazz was an art form that was started largely by black and mixed race creoles, etc., down in Louisiana. Um, and being a music nut, yeah, I like anybody who can make noise. And jazz and jazz fusion, I'm a huge fan of. My wife loves the jazz and the big band jazz from like the 20s to the 40s. She's always listening to that, so I listen to a lot of, especially in the car when I'm with her. Um, but a lot of things um, in our society um, really has to be credited to a black person or a group of black people that lifted something into our society that's now commonplace and it's something we all love. You know? Yeah, I love rock and roll, and I also know who started it. You know, I realize that Elvis Presley got rich, got wealthy singing black music. Hound Dog was not his song. A lot of his songs weren't his songs. They were covers. Okay, covers of great black artists who came before him. So yeah, and I've had friends from all over the world, every color you can imagine that we show up in. Haven't met Kirk's green girlfriend, but I'm sure she's nice. Um, I watching this be such a racism, watching racism become such a prominent thing again. And it is because of stupid things like those damn monuments that were put up by the Daughters of the Confederacy, you know, many decades later. And now we just have a bunch of nationalists, wealthy nationalists, who understand that racism is the common denominator. All they have to do is, use that back part of the brain, that reptilian fight or flight part of the brain, and go, oh, look who's doing that to you. You see that guy that doesn't look like you or doesn't sound like you or maybe eats different foods than you? Like, I've seen videos online, people freaking out over foreign foods, like freaking out over a chicken shawarma. And I'm like, why don't you shut the fuck up? Go to a good shawarma shop, order a chicken shawarma and a soda, sit down and have lunch and enjoy yourself, because a chicken shawarma is fucking delicious. Okay? Stop complaining about shit you don't know about. And just stop reacting to shit because, it isn't an American hamburger, which is not even American. Hot dogs and hamburgers, we love them, but probably both come from Germany. Someone thought up before we did. Has anyone seen High Horse Black Cowboy on Peacock? Stolen Black Culture Revealed. No, but that sounds interesting, because there's a lot of contributions that were basically taken or miscredited. Sure, that's definitely true. But when it comes up to this next election, I'm gonna wrap it up on the hour here. This next election, we got to talk up people. Nobody, and what's nice is the focus groups are saying people don't like this. The special elections say people don't like this. Okay, so I don't think you have to do much convincing outside of the 1 out of 5 Americans who are still in the cult of dear leader, porn star Hooker. The 4 out of 5 people that we need to address, we need to get the 1 out of 4 of that group that have never gone to the polls. We need them registered to vote, preferably as an independent, but we need them registered to vote. And they need to get out to a polling place. We need to educate each other about candidates. Because this is it. We have one chance to fix this. It's the midterms. If it doesn't get fixed in the midterms, it's over. If you think they're deconstructing things like shutting down the Kennedy Center because nobody wants to do, the Nazi side of a musical. Remember in Sound of Music, he ripped up the flag. He didn't start singing to it. Okay. Um, Jesus. They figured out a way how to bum rush the courts, bum rush the public, bum rush our own heads, our own minds, our psyches. Vote in primaries for the fighters versus the corporate centrists. Um, I think the key thing there, in my view, it's the problem is corporate. The problem isn't centrist. Like I told you guys before, I'm like 9.9 libertarian, but I'm like 0.1 left. So it puts me in the center, left to right. Okay. I don't think centrists are a problem because I don't think there are many um, true centrists that are elected. Um, who we have unfortunately elected is a bunch of corporate socialists. They literally believe that the government should be run by the wealthy shareholders of large corporations, and their job is to pretend like we, the people, have a say. Because if you looked forward to what is best for the country, like Yeah, I'm center left by just a smidge, okay? But you hand me a problem space, like, should they defund and get rid of Social Security and Medicare? Absolutely not. Social Security is the one program more than any other program we've ever created that reduces elderly poverty. I mean, poverty, not this. We're talking skipping meals, skipping medicine, not having a roof over your head, that type of poverty, not just, oh my God, I don't have any money after I paid the rent and went to the Piggly Wiggly. I'm talking destitute poverty. Okay. Um, I seriously do not think Social Security and Medicare, nor did Ronald Reagan, by the way, they were never the cause of our debt or deficit. Okay. So should we pay FICA and fund Social Security and keep elderly people out of poverty? Hell yeah. Yep. Yep. Should we do pediatric cancer research as a government and other research as government? Yeah, I used to work at a research lab, physics lab, but a research lab. Yeah, national research programs are awesome. We learn a lot, and pure science results in things. Like people understand that we had no fucking clue what we were trying to figure out when the quantum mechanics era started in the 1920s. What quantum mechanics got us was QED by Richard Feynman and others, the quantum electrodynamics, and it got us the transistor. Ergo, the LED screen you're watching me on right now, the computer or your phone, those are all transistors. The lights in your house now, the LEDs, like the LEDs behind me, okay, those are transistors. Nobody knew we'd get transistors out of studying quantum mechanics. That's exactly what fucking happened. Okay, so I'm all about pure sciences funding, pediatric cancer, um, uh, HIV, tuberculosis, all those health problems. Yep. Government should definitely be funding those and definitely be researching it, just like we should be doing pure science at the physics labs. So I think it's not centrist per se. It is using whatever position you're sitting in to not go through the basics, use common sense, and deal with the problem. Like, I'll tell you one place, it just infuriates me with Democrats is they all want to complain about the prison incarceration, the school to prison pipeline, prison sentences being too stuff, bail being too stuff, yada 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 yada. Yet they still want the drug war. Really, really, and you wonder why the prisons are all full, huh? That's funny. Portugal legalized all drugs, and drug use plummeted. So did crime. We've been running a war since Henry Anslinger, creating crime, and then when we say, "Hey, we're spending, an enormous amount of money, not just on prisons, but private prisons where people are making money off of this. And the main source of those detainees, those prisoners, is the drug war. Democrats say, let's keep the drug war going. I, I don't get it. Education funding. Yeah. I think we should get rid of student loans. It's usury. I've written articles about usury on this platform. I think we should go back to the Pell Grant system. We should go to a GI system, a GI Bill system for veterans. Okay. Every dollar we spend on the GI Bill post World War II, the economy got back $7.50 according to Rand. That's a positive investment. What's our positive ROI for detaining 500,000 people in gulags, many of them U.S. citizens and legal residents, over something that most of the time is a civil offense? It's like having an expired registration on your license plate. It's not a felony. It's not a felony until many other things happen, besides you being in here without the proper paperwork or overstaying a visa or whatever they're freaking the fuck out of over right now. Okay. And I think anybody reasonable would be somewhere around those positions that I just spoke to. You know, we need to move me in the center a little bit when it comes to law enforcement. Okay, defund the police was the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my fucking life. Again, the 15-year-old girl's found dead by the river. The Murder She Wrote Club is going to do the crime scene. Shut the fuck up. The same way, ICE is 100% wrong. Okay, defund 100% wrong. Eliminate the police 100% wrong. What ICE is doing 100% wrong. So the solution has got to be somewhere in the middle. Okay, be independent, vote independent, run for local office independent, talk to your family, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers. Not voting is not a choice at this juncture. Literally, everybody's mind is we must vote out of office every corporate socialist Dem, every corporate socialist Republican, then any MAGA idiot from either party. Because now you got MAGA idiots in both parties. Kular from Texas is now a MAGA Democrat. He's got to fucking go. Every last one of them. No, I'm talking the defund the police from like George Floyd, not not Minneapolis. Yes, we were complaining about that, and I told you the root cause of why they started targeting so much people with live fire, because remember I said the other day about the ice gear. Look how they're dressed, and look how we dressed back in the 80s and 90s. Okay, we look like city police. When I worked with the Polizei in West Germany, they look like city police. These guys look like Michael Bay's infantry platoon in Afghanistan for the new Netflix movie. What job do you think they're dressing for? They're dressing for to be either a militia, a gang, or they're dressing for combat. When you handed local police after 9/11 all that military gear and including armored cars, which I jokingly call tanks. I know what a real tank looks like. I was in the army. I've seen a M60A2 and A3 and Abrams up close. I know what they look like. But they, in their head, their psychology, the local police in the Black Lives Matter shooting too many people era, that's the problem. You gave them gear and told them go to war. And then when they started shooting people, you went, Hunnell, how the hell did that happen? Okay. And yes, they did shoot a lot of minorities, but they were shooting a lot of everybody. What became the matches to the protests, the fuel to the fire, was incidents like George Floyd and a couple others. But I don't know if you guys ever saw the tape from, I think it was Scottsdale, Arizona, killing the white mental patient as he cried for his father. They literally murdered him on camera. Nobody gave a shit. He was known to the police as a mental health case. Okay. They didn't give a shit. They literally just beat him to death on camera. Nobody cared. While literally crying out for his father. It was one of the saddest things I've ever seen in my goddamn life. And yeah, and I can see why people got pissed at George Floyd. That was a flat out slow strangulation death. And then the way they try to justify it, like I was just saying earlier tonight, I mean, we went through this with the local cops. They were doing stupid shit left, right, and center. We didn't want them doing that as law enforcement. We are not a fucking war zone. But yeah, they slow strangled a guy and then started making excuses, just like they were making excuses after Good and Preety were shot. Like calling them domestic terrorists is the most ridiculous shit, other than trying to declare Antifa a domestic terrorist group when there is no designation of a domestic terrorist group. That doesn't exist. Antifa. You mean a bunch of kids who are trying to stay on the right side of history? That's your big domestic terrorist organization? Shut the fuck up. That is ridiculous. So what I'm saying is, yeah, we can't defund the police. We can't have ICE. So somewhere closer to the middle, closer to sanity has got to be the answer. And the answer with the local police was retraining. The answer with ICE, those guys are not retrainable. Uh-uh. I talked about that in the other live video the other day about closing the whole police department back in my day. Fine with me. Disband ICE, fire every single one of them. States need to start passing laws saying that if you work for ICE, you cannot work for law enforcement in their state. Christ, you can't even be a security guard or a bail bondsman or bounty hunter, bond retrieval agent. Accountability, firing, jail. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Hey, Rodney King was my day. Do you think I shed a tear because Larry Powell and the other guys got convicted in federal court? Nope. You do something that bad, there's going to be accountability. You're going to get fired for it, and then the prosecutor's going to come after you. Like, I knew the senior ADAs at our local courthouse. I knew exactly who those men and women were. And I knew if I screwed up, they would charge me. Okay. We need to put the fear of the law back into their heart and mind so they will behave themselves appropriately. And obviously, Minnesota had a turnaround here. We're talking about Black Lives Matter and George Floyd. They went through an entire year without capping anybody. 900 felony arrests, hundreds of guns taken off the streets, or the other way around, hundreds of felonies, 900 guns, something like that. But yeah, they had like a great year, and they didn't cap anybody. Great, great. We had to straighten out our local people. They got fucking wild too. I was telling you guys that the other night, the cannabis store, they try to turn a burglary into a robbery. Except you don't pick up a 337 when a cop's telling you to put your hands up. Right on camera. Gun was there, 100%. Boom, shot him in the stomach. Then he's on the ground crying. He drops the gun instantly because he got hit in the stomach, and he's crying about being shot. Well, don't pull a gun, dummy. I was immediately sending it to my friends from back in the day. Go, they got one with a gun. Oh my god, this time he actually had a gun. A lot of them in the before 4 times we were just talking about, they didn't have guns or any other weapon that would justify discharging your firearm. So, see, that's why I'm saying 50%, because we need to spend a year scaring the shit out of them to let them know that, a cabal of self-interest does not decide the policies in this country. We, the people, do. Okay. We'll give you some money back. We'll let you hire back some people when you show yourselves you can behave yourself. Okay. When you're not acting like the fucking Stasi from East Germany. When you're not hiring Nazi bozos as supervisors. Because this shit has nothing to do with law enforcement. That small group of, what is it, 7.8% of the people who had criminal activity or criminal convictions or active warrants, you're doing 7% of the job right. I don't consider that very good. That's like only solving 7% of your felonies as a city police department. You suck as cops if that's the case. Like, my best day is when I solved a burglary. Okay. Because that fucks with the whole family, or it fucks with the store owner or whatever. And getting broken into is a really stressful, emotional event for people. And when you can take a burglar off the street, you're like, yes, got one. When you get a commercial burglary, they obviously were stealing cigarettes, whole bunch of cigarettes on the ground. I put my gloves on, grab a packet, get my dusting kit out. Boom, an entire thumbprint right there. There you go. Somebody gets pulled over the next night, they got a bunch of cigarettes in the backseat of their car. They all get FI'd, field interviewed. One guy in the car, unknown to the guy doing the stop, he's a known felon. Okay. So we go to his arrest records, find his fingerprints, take the fingerprint I found on the cigarette pack at the scene of the crime, put it with his thumbprints from his previous records. Guess who broke into the store? Gotcha. Gotcha. No shots fired. No beating the shit out of somebody. I literally did my job with the dusting kit and lifted a good print at the crime scene. Actually, listed several good prints of the crime scene, but the thumb was perfect. Then another officer did his job at a traffic stop and did an extended field interview with everybody in the car. Once we know who one of the guys was, we put two and two together, compare the prints, we were done. That's a good day. The best day, by the way, and I'll say this one last thing, I'll let you guys go tonight. The best day, and I mean this 100%, a best day on patrol, the best day on your beat was a peaceful day. A day where I got to go to the 7-Eleven at, after the bars closed, like 3:30, go grab a big coffee, the Wall Street Journal, go find one of my sitting spots, watch traffic, whatever, drink my coffee, read the Wall Street Journal, have enough time to read the whole thing. That was it. That was the best days. Days of peace. That's why I've been telling my friends, and they think I'm being a little idealistic, and I'm not. I'm being serious. I think we should literally stop calling local police officers and call them peace officers, because that's your fucking job. Okay. All right. Remember, talk your friends up. Let's start being independent minded. Let's move forward. Get people, please share and like my content. Subscribing helps. Got a whole bunch of ones the last 7 to 10 days. Really appreciate that. But I'll get spreading the message here. So I'm not trying to be an influencer. I'm not trying to turn this into a big thing. I just want to say what's on my mind. Get to some independent, fellow-minded people and work toward a change. Because boy, do we need one. We cannot. We have to get past your leader porn star humper, and we got to get to a new era in America, just like they had to clean up after Watergate. We need to stop what's going on right now, just like they needed to stop Watergate. And then we need to do a big cleanup. EJ, NutBallCop. Yes, that's me. So talk it up, share, like, subscribe. Thank you very much for all being here tonight. Nice crowd. Follow up in the comments if something, or hi EJ, how you doing, buddy? um, and I'll be online again soon. I gotta work a little more on the data cluster, but I'll probably on probably Wednesday night, and we'll get up to speed on some more current events. Okay. Until then, till next time, please think about it.